On a cold and damp Tuesday in February 2002, in Alabama, 56-year-old James Harper, known to everyone as Jim, began his workday as usual. As the senior technician for the Conecuh County Land Improvement Service, he spent more time in these swamps than in his own garden. His work was monotonous but necessary, monitoring the condition of drainage systems that prevented the swamps from engulfing farmland and country roads. That morning he had one task: to check the drainage pipe on plot number 7, deep in the marshy lowlands adjacent to the Conecuh National Forest. The place was remote, known for its impassability and sticky mud even in dry seasons. Jim left in his Ford Ranger pickup truck around 8 a.m., promising his wife Mary that he would be back for dinner. He was a man of habit, meticulous and cautious. He never cut corners, consistently reported his route, and never took on a job without the right tools. So, when he didn't return home by 7 p.m., Mary Harper immediately felt uneasy. She waited another hour, then called the Conecuh County Sheriff's Office. The initial search did not cause much panic. Everyone assumed that Harper's pickup truck had gotten stuck in the mud or had engine trouble in an area without cell phone coverage. The next morning, February 13th, a patrol helicopter spotted his vehicle. It was parked on the edge of a gravel road, about half a mile from the very culvert Jim was supposed to check. The discovery immediately raised several questions for which there were no logical answers. The pickup's engine was not running, but the key was in the ignition, and the dashboard indicated that the fuel tank was almost empty, as if the engine had been idling for many hours until the gas ran out. The driver's door was ajar. Inside, on the passenger seat, lay a neatly unfolded map of the area with section number 7 marked on it. Next to it was an almost full pack of his favorite chewing tobacco, Redman. His tools, swamp boots, and a thermos of cold coffee were in the back of the truck. There were no signs of a struggle, no drops of blood, no signs that anyone else had been in the cab. It looked as if James Harper, an experienced man who knew these places like the back of his hand, had stepped out of the car for a moment and vanished into thin air. The sheriff's office immediately launched a full-scale search operation. Volunteers and rangers from the Alabama Department of Natural Resources joined in. Dozens of people, divided into groups, began combing the swamp square by square. Canine units joined them. But the dogs, picking up the scent from the open door of the pickup truck, lost it after 20 or 30 yards at the water's edge, after which they began to behave restlessly, whine, and refuse to go any further. The Conecuh River lowlands are a maze of cypress trees, fallen trees covered with moss, and quagmires capable of pulling in a careless traveler in a matter of minutes. Visibility in the dense thickets did not exceed a few meters. Searches from the air were practically useless due to the thick canopy of trees. Rescuers found only traces of wild animals, deer, raccoons, and opossums. There were no human traces other than their own. On the second day of the search, County Sheriff Raymond Phillips put forward the first official version, which seemed the most obvious: an alligator attack. The Conecuh swamps were known for their population of these reptiles. According to the investigation, Harper could have approached the water, where he was attacked by a predator and dragged underwater. This theory explained the absence of a body and the presence of traces of a struggle on land. However, biological experts involved in the investigation were skeptical of this version. February in Alabama is still a cold month. The water temperature in the swamps was low, and alligators are not very active at this time of year. Their metabolism is slow, they rarely hunt, and they prefer to stay in their burrows. Moreover, in the last 50 years, there has not been a single recorded case of an unprovoked alligator attack on a human in Conecuh County. Harper's colleague Bill Jenkins, with whom he had worked side by side for almost 20 years, flatly refused to believe this theory. Jim wasn't a rookie, he told investigators. He knew everything about alligators. He would never have approached the water's edge without first looking around. He taught that to the young guys. He wasn't an idiot. Something else happened there. Residents, hunters, and fishermen also shook their heads in disapproval. They told old stories that are usually ignored by officials, about strange noises at night, large shadows darting between trees, and a feeling of unexplained anxiety that sometimes grips the most remote parts of the swamp. These stories were dismissed as folklore and not included in the case. The search continued. Each day brought nothing but disappointment and fatigue. Hope of finding James Harper alive was fading. No one could have imagined that the strangest and most inexplicable discovery awaited them, and that it would not only fail to shed light on the fate of the missing worker, but also turn this case into one of the most mysterious stories in the state of Alabama's criminal history. 6 days of searching yielded no results. The search area expanded, and rescuers ventured deeper into the swampy marsh, but found no piece of clothing or trace that could belong to James Harper. Hope gave way to a grim determination to find at least a body so that the family could have some closure. On Monday, February 18, 2002, one of the search teams, consisting of 2 sheriff's deputies and 3 National Guard volunteers, combed a challenging area east of where the pickup truck had been found. The terrain here was a flooded cypress forest, where trees grew directly out of dark, stagnant water. It was only possible to move around on small islands of dry land or fallen tree trunks. It was here, around noon, that one of the guardsmen, 20-year-old Corporal David Green, stopped to drink some water and happened to look up. What he saw made him freeze in his tracks. High above his head, at a height of at least 30 feet, or almost 10 meters, at the top of an old oak tree, hung a work jacket. The tree itself was a strange sight. Its top was broken and split, as if a huge weight had fallen on it from above. The thick branches, which were supposed to withstand hurricane-force winds, were broken and hung down at unnatural angles. Fresh splinters on the breaks in the trunk stood out brightly against the dark, damp bark, and on these fragments, caught on the sharp edge of the split tree, hung a dark blue jacket belonging to James Harper. It was clearly visible against the gray sky, and there was no doubt that it was the one Mary Harper had described in detail to the investigators. The team immediately reported the find by radio. An hour later, Sheriff Phillips and several investigators arrived at the scene. The scene baffled everyone. There was no reasonable explanation for how the jacket could have ended up there. The first problem was the height. 10 meters is the height of a 3-story building. The tree trunk was smooth and covered with slippery moss, with no branches or knots for the first 20 feet, making it impossible to climb without special climbing equipment. The second was the condition of the tree. The damage was fresh and did not resemble a lightning strike or the result of strong winds, which had not been observed in recent days. A Forest Service expert called to the scene would later describe it in his report as the result of the application of extreme, focused vertical force. Put, something weighty either fell on top of the tree from above or flew off it with tremendous force, breaking everything in its path. The third and most important question is the jacket itself. It was not torn to shreds as if it had been dragged upward by an animal, such as a cougar, which incidentally do not live in this part of Alabama and do not drag their prey to such heights. It was intact, except for a small tear, where it had caught on some splinters. The operation to remove the jacket was long and difficult. A special team had to be called in with an extension ladder, which was difficult to transport due to its depth in the swamp. When the jacket was finally lowered to the ground, it was placed on a spread-out tarpaulin and examined with extreme caution. In the breast pocket, they found a driver's license in the name of James Harper and a half-eaten energy bar. This finally confirmed its ownership. The jacket was damp with dew, but it showed no bloodstains or signs of a struggle. However, the forensic experts made 3 discoveries that transformed this already unusual case into a genuine cryptozoological mystery. First, 3 long black hairs were found stuck to the lining inside the collar. They were stiff, thick, and completely unlike human hair, or the hair of any known local animal, such as a black bear or deer. Second, in the folds of the fabric of the right pocket, the expert found a small, about a centimeter-long fragment of something hard and dark. Its shape resembled a fragment of a claw or a very thick nail. It was curved and had a sharp edge. Third, there were no traces of soil, dirt, or mud on the jacket, which completely ruled out the possibility that Harper had been dragged into the water and then somehow his jacket had come off and caught on a tree. All the evidence found was carefully packaged and sent to the State Forensic Laboratory in Montgomery. The results of the tests, received a few days later, only added to the mystery. Microscopic analysis of the hair showed that it belonged to a mammal, but its structure did not match any sample in the North American Animal Database. Chemical analysis of a fragment of the claw revealed that it was composed of keratin, like the claws of most animals. However, its density and structure were also unique. It was stronger than a bear's claw and had microscopic serrations, not characteristic of any known species. The official version of the alligator attack now seemed not just questionable, but downright absurd. No reptile is capable of breaking the top of a tree at a height of 10 meters. No animal known to science could have left such evidence. Following this discovery, the search operation continued for another week, albeit with less enthusiasm. Everyone understood that they were dealing with something beyond their experience and understanding. At the end of February, having found no further traces of James Harper, Sheriff Phillips was compelled to officially conclude the active phase of the search. The case was reclassified as a disappearance under unexplained circumstances. Officially, it remained unsolved. But for those who participated in the search, and for the residents of Kanika County, the story did not end there. It had only just begun, giving rise to a multitude of rumors and theories, each more frightening than the last. Old legends about the Mothman or the swamp ape, which had previously been dismissed as children's horror stories, were now whispered and recounted with trepidation. No one could dismiss Jim Harper's disappearance as a simple predator attack anymore. Something had taken him, something strong enough to break a tree like a matchstick, and strange enough to leave behind nothing but a couple of inexplicable clues and a jacket hanging where it shouldn't be, between the sky and the scorching earth of the Alabama swamp. Years passed, but the case of James Harper's disappearance remained at a standstill. 5 years later, in 2007, in accordance with Alabama state law, he was officially declared dead. His wife, Mary, received a death certificate with a blank space in the cause column. For the legal system, the story was over. But for Sheriff Raymond Phillips, who retired in 2010, the case became what the police call a ghost, an unsolved file that he kept in his desk drawer until his last day on the job. In private conversations, he admitted that it was the only case in his 30-year career that made him question the rational order of the world. He never publicly supported supernatural theories, but once told a local reporter, "We look for answers on the ground, but that day something made us look up, and we still don't understand what we saw there." With the case closed, the official investigation ended, but the unofficial one had only just begun. Due to its strangeness and lack of logical explanation, the story spread beyond Connecticut County, and attracted the attention of a completely different kind of researcher. A string of cryptozoologists, ghost hunters, and ufologists flocked to the swamps. They set up camps, installed camera traps and sound recording devices, hoping to capture what they believed had taken James Harper. Residents, who were initially suspicious of them, gradually began to share stories that had previously only been told within a small circle. Legends emerged from the Creek Indians, the indigenous people of these lands, about the Shunk Warrican, a winged creature resembling a giant owl with wolf-like features that carried away careless hunters. Based on the evidence and folklore gathered, several main theories emerged, each attempting to explain the inexplicable. The most popular was the version about the attack of the so-called Bat Squatch, or Alabama Mothman, a large winged humanoid. According to its supporters, this theory provides a perfect explanation of the key details of the case. The creature could have swooped down on Harper from the sky, which would explain the suddenness of his disappearance and the lack of signs of a struggle on the ground. It could also have broken the top of the tree with its weight while taking off or landing. The jacket could have accidentally caught on something and torn off Harper's body at that moment. The unidentified hair and claw fragment also fit perfectly into the portrait of a previously unknown biological species. The second theory pointed to the swamp ape, a southern variety of the snowman. Supporters of this version claimed that the enormous physical strength was required to cause such damage to a tree. In their opinion, a large primate could kill a human and carry away their body. Although these creatures are considered terrestrial, they are quite capable of climbing trees. However, this theory could not clearly explain why the creature needed to climb to the very top of a fragile tree and how exactly only the jacket ended up there, without any traces of blood. Of course, more down-to-earth versions were also considered, but the facts refuted each of them. The theory of a specific ritual murder committed by a human being did not stand up to criticism. No individual or group of people could have thrown a jacket 10 meters high onto a broken tree with such precision without leaving any traces of their presence. Moreover, James Harper, a quiet and non-confrontational family man, had no enemies capable of such sophisticated and senseless cruelty. Almost 10 years after his disappearance, in 2011, a new, albeit indirect, witness appeared in the case. An elderly hunter named Hank Roberts, after reading another newspaper article about the anniversary of the mysterious event, contacted the sheriff's office. He said that in February 2002, he was hunting deer a few miles from where Harper disappeared. One evening at dusk, he heard a strange sound, like the crackling of breaking branches, and then saw a huge, dark shadow, the size of a small airplane, silently sweep over the treetops. He couldn't make out any distinct features, but it was definitely not a bird or a helicopter. Frightened, he hurried away and told no one what he had seen, fearing they would think he was crazy. His testimony could not be included in the case. Still, it added another piece to the overall picture of something anomalous that had happened in the Conecuh swamps during those days. Today, the James Harper case remains one of the most notorious and mysterious cases of the American South. His name has become part of local folklore, synonymous with the mysterious and frightening side of the wilderness. The section of the swamp where his pickup truck was found is now called Harper's Break, and even the most daring hunters try to avoid it after sunset. The story serves as a warning that even in the most remote and wild corners of the world, there may be things that are beyond human understanding. And until a body is found or new, decisive evidence emerges. The only material evidence of this mystery will remain a photograph in a yellowed file, a picture of a dark blue work jacket hanging alone on a broken treetop, like a silent question addressed to the sky, to which no answer has ever been found.